Wonderful. Hey, y'all. Welcome to First Comes Love, Then Comes Marriage podcast. My name is Lindsay Jackson.
And I'm Aaron Jackson.
And we are so honored to have our guest, our friend, Pastor Jordan Allen, here with us. Let's start by talking about who he is to us.
So, Pastor Jordan, my family known Pastor Jordan forever. He baptized me.
Come on.
He baptized me and he buried my grandmother. He's almost like the alpha. He married my sister.
Married your sister. Come on.
What else? He has done so much. He's always there. It's almost like Morgan Freeman. And
right. I should have his flower. There's money and all the rest of that stuff too.
And also, he did the video for our wedding.
Yes.
He was a videographer for our wedding, which is great because we, as smart people do, had a video person and a photographer, because if you have the same person doing both, you're not going to get all the shots that you want. So right. He did our videos. He's been an advisor and a friend of my father. He's always there to talk to me when I was in youth church and I was a youth leader. He was there helping Davin and being a guide for Davin Baptiste, who was my mentor. And I just appreciate him. And he also is the head of, I don't know if are you the head of the
congregational care? The department is congregational care, which my primary duties are marriage preparation and bereavement.
Yes.
Oh, beginning and end.
Yesterday was Davin's birthday.
Yes.
Yes, it was. It was his birthday. I talked to the old man.
Well, this is why we have you on this show, and we're so excited because you have the wisdom and experience to share with us about premarital counseling. And so I just want to start with, what is premarital counseling and what is it good for? What is it about?
Well, quite honestly, at Faithful Central, we are unabashedly pro-marriage. Okay.
Yes.
And we've developed this class of marriage preparation. It's over 27 years old. Okay. And we've done that primarily to help couples get a firm understanding and foundation for the marriage that they're trying to build. Now, that said, every couple that comes to marriage preparation is not suitable for being married, or it's not suitable to be married to each other. I'll put it that way too. Okay. So we're not trying to discourage anybody. We want to make sure everybody understands that marriage you guys have been married for a while. Marriage is a full-time job.
Yes.
You change your careers, you change your living space and all that stuff. Yes. But your marriage is an organism that is constantly growing and moving along with you. And it takes into consideration the children you have, the families that you have, all of the stuff that goes on in both of your families and all of that stuff. So that's why we are very high on this. Oddly enough, we're doing this at an interesting time. We're just starting a brand new curriculum for marriage preparation, and we'll be going into effect with the first class in January. I don't know if you guys remember Dr. Erica Holmes.
No.
She's the head of the counseling department now.
Okay.
She was doing some other stuff when Dr. Polite was there, but she's been the head since he's been gone. And she's written this new book, Bishop is very high on. And we're starting with the first class the second week in January.
Okay, wow. A new curriculum.
So let's talk about that, because you say curriculum, there's a structure to what you discuss, maybe there's questions being asked and answered, or what are you asking of the couples that come? Normally,
we have 3 classes a year: January, I think the end of April, and then the end of July. We do that because years ago we used to have 4 classes a year, and it was burning out the mentors. So we do that. So they have the whole holiday season off. Okay. But the way it has been structured is that we want people to understand what they're getting into. How can I say this the right way? Jesus. We don't want you to get into marriage for all the wrong reasons. Okay, and I'll tell them, I do the orientation. I do the orientation for all of the classes. And one of the things I tell them in the orientation is this: you give this class 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, okay? You'll come up with one of 3 different answers. Number 1, yes, I'm ready to get married. Number two, I don't think I'm really ready to get married yet. Or the worst one is number three, I'm ready to get married, just not with the person I came to this class with. You see, and so what happens, that doesn't mean they can't be friends, but it would be a bad mix, a bad match. Because when they go through the class, then we have, it's like I said, it's going to be restructured now. But at the end, I do the exit interviews with all of them, and I get assessments from the marriage mentors that have been teaching them and guiding them and mentoring them. And they make an assessment as to the readiness for the couple to get married from their perspective, okay? And I'm not saying they're always 100% right, because I have to go over there and I go through and ask certain questions to make sure we're all on the same page. But as long as we've been doing this, I'm gonna say, oh God, about 2/3 or so of the couples, maybe it's closer to 70%, actually end up getting married.
Okay.
Other 30% end up not getting married for a variety of reasons, okay? But of that 70% that gets married, probably 25% of them shouldn't be getting married.
Wow.
And they get married for why do they get married? I'm glad you asked that question. Number one, here's the biggest thing. I'm not going to be embarrassed by postponing or calling off this wedding. I've sent out all these invitations.
Right.
My response to them is this: well, how come you won't be bent out of shape when you come to us 18 months down the road talking about getting a divorce?
Huh.
You know, that's a very real situation. Or here's another one. Oh God, here's another one. I spent too much money on this thing.
Oof. Yes.
So we're going through this. You know, you remember my son Carlton?
Yes.
You know, Carlton was engaged to be married a few years before he got
married.
To Ebony.
Yes.
Well, I can tell you certain stuff about that. Certain stuff I'm not going to tell you.
No. Okay.
But it ended up, he called. They were getting married in August. Remember of that particular year, and he was head over heels in love with Ebony. He talked about her. He had his car, he had a motorcycle, he had even planned he was moving to New York. He had been having lunch with you guys.
Yep.
Yeah, because at the time he was working for the Apple store, and they found out I think there's an Apple store in Manhattan that's open 24 hours.
You can
24 hours, open 24 hours.
Yep.
Yeah, so he was working in the Manhattan Beach store here, so had made all the contacts. He called me about February, because we had this big dinner at his mom's house with me and his mom and the two of them and her parents. Okay, it was wonderful. It was lots of love and happiness and all that stuff. But he called me in like February, end of February, said, "Damn, something is not quite right here." And I said, "What do you mean something's not quite right?" The wedding's in August. I was so excited. They was going to be married at some winery down in Temecula.
Yeah.
I had already made my reservation. I was going to stay there for 4 days. I wasn't going to be bothered with it. It was just giving me an excuse to get away. And so he tells me this. I'm saying, well, you know, you guys got to, whatever it is, you got to talk. He wouldn't tell me what it was. And they had paid all this money. He had bought the ring. She had bought the dress, all of the deposits down for the repass and all of that stuff, you know. He calls me about the middle of July. No, the end of June. He said, I can't do this.
Yeah.
You can't do this. He said, we could get married today, or this month, next month rather, and we'd be divorced within 4 years.
Wow. He saw it.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna tell you the reasons why, but legitimate reasons from his perspective, she probably still to this day doesn't know. He actually had the conversation with her, but he was hurt going through this. He was in love with her. Okay. They were dates at 14, man.
Yeah.
You guys probably don't know this. You know, he didn't write a poem to her about her. He wrote a book of poetry.
He wrote me poems.
I have a book of them. I even designed a cover for them. I still have them on 2 computers, you know.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
It's so for fun. I'm saying to myself, how in the world can a 14-year-old have these kind of feelings? It was freaking me out. I was joking around. I said, man, this is just puppy love. You know what Carlton always says? Dad, puppies need love too. I said, oh.
Wow. He was ready.
He did. He went through all of that. And so then he had to tell her. And the wedding was called off. There's a lot of drama in the middle of all of it. I'm not even going to share that with you. But bottom line is he was destroyed because he had sold his car and sold his motorcycle.
Wow.
He had been driving her car that she left in LA at her mom's house in preparation of moving in New York.
Wow.
But it took him a year to get his head back together, man. And then I guess about 15, 18 months after all of that, he went to a party out in San Fernando Valley. And he ran into some friends of his. He had gone to school at the University of Arizona. And one of the young ladies there, he had met his sophomore year. In fact, they graduated in, what was it, 2000? I can't remember. Anyway, but they ran into each other. They had known each other. They were friends while they were in college. And they started talking and hanging out. There was a group of them who staying out together. The next thing, they got a little friendly with each other, okay? And they've been married 10 years now. They have a daughter will be 6 in December 20th, and they have a little son. There'll be 2 in February. Anyway, but we go through all of that stuff, and we go. The couples go through the classes, okay, and they learn a lot of stuff. One of the premier focuses is oneness. You have to develop oneness, because that way you be there for each other. Because you know what Scripture says. People always laugh at this scripture that says, "Wives wives submit to your husbands." And I'm like, Bishop, they skipped the verse before that, which says, "Submitting yourselves one to the other." In other words, your marriage is a co-leadership. I know you got the cool beard and all that stuff, but you're not the big head of this house. You both are the heads of the household, okay? And a lot of us men, especially, we don't understand what being head of the household really means. The head of the household does not mean that you're the master of the plantation. Amen.
Amen.
It means that you're literally translated. It's supposed to mean that you're the spiritual leader in your home. And if there's any problems in the home, I don't care what it is or how it's evidenced. If the wife goes half crazy, it's on you to correct all of that stuff. I'm giving you previews of coming attractions here, okay? But that's what you have to do. That's what it is. Yeah. And you guys, whatever you do, you have to do it as a team. Okay? Yes. You have to do it as a team. And if you don't, the marriage is doomed. You hear all the time about people who have been married 20 years or 25 years, and they get divorced. Like, how can they be married that long? I've seen that a million times. And the normal answer is, well, we just we lost track of each other. We've been together all this time, and I don't know. We just fell apart. Well, that tells me that they were never totally apart together at the beginning. Because usually when that's especially when the wife, let me put it this way, when the wife is a stay-at-home mom that takes care of the house, takes care of the children, and the husband, and all the rest of the stuff, which women don't get enough credit for that. But that's another whole subject, okay? But what happens, the husband is out there doing whatever he's doing, and for whatever reason he gets distracted or whatever, he says, well, we fell out of love with each other. No, you never put in the proper work to build that solid foundation with each other. There should never be any surprises with each other. Now, you guys have been married. How long have you guys been married now?
8 years.
8 years. I guarantee you, when the day you got married in Pasadena, when your mother wore that peach-colored dress, okay, from that day you got married till now, you know her a lot better than you knew her 8 years ago. You know him a lot better than you knew him 8 years ago.
Yes.
Here's a secret. You still have a lot more to learn about each other because how old are you guys now?
35.
Oh, Jesus. I have clothes older than you guys, man. But you're going to learn, the more you go in this world, you learn more and more about each other. You think you know a lot about, you know everything about each other. You know most of what you need to know, but you're going to constantly be learning new stuff, especially if you learn how to keep your marriage fresh, how to keep your relationship fresh.
Can you give us some specific signs that you see or that the mentors see that will say, like, this is, maybe they're not the right ones for each other, or they are the right ones? Like, what do you look for?
One of the telltale signs for a relationship heading to chaos, if they don't get along well in the class.
Just in front of people, period.
Oh yeah, then don't have no respect for them in front of anybody. And we've seen that happen a lot. It's like, that's crazy. Or it could be if they are, I'll use this term loosely, if they are unequally yoked. And that can mean a lot of different
that
things.
was going to be one of my questions.
So there'll be a lot of things. We had a lady and her fiance go to the class. It's got to be 5-6 years ago now. And they went to the class. They loved the class. I see them in church every 2 weeks because a lot of people don't see everybody every week. And when they got ready to get married, she was in the class with Pastor George too. So she called him to ask him to perform the ceremony. He said, "We finished marriage prep." Sure, I've been one happy to. And then we found out, as Paul Harvey would say, then you find out the rest of the story. Okay?
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't do it, and she came to me, and I found out this is what it was. They love each other. I don't doubt that they love each other. She was a relatively long-standing member at Faithful Central. He was a long-standing member at his church, except his church was a Muslim mosque.
Okay.
I'm not talking Nation of Islam Muslim.
Oh.
I'm talking about the Muslims, okay?
Yeah, like in Dubai.
And that means that they are unequally yoked. They have totally different belief systems.
Okay.
I never forget, we were in the forum and Bishop had Tony Muhammad come, and just to introduce him, Bishop likes to be in front of everybody, right? And so he said, Muhammad says, may I pray for you? He said, sure. He did this wonderful prayer. See, if you've never heard Farrakhan or anybody preach, they're tremendous orators and preachers, okay? When he finished the prayer, he said, and I say these things in the name of Moses, amen. And everybody said, because it's different.
Yeah.
I'm not even trying to say it's better or worse, it's just different. Yeah. Another telltale sign is, and you find this out through conversations in small groups and all that stuff. If for whatever reason, he feels like he is superior to her, or she feels like she is superior to him. I had a wedding I did years ago. The woman was an attorney. She had 8 bridesmaids. This was at First Church, as a matter of fact, is where the wedding was. She had 8 bridesmaids. They were all attorneys. The guy she married was like 6'4", 6'5", very handsome guy, a beautiful tuxedo and all that stuff. I find out after the wedding, okay, that we worked in trash disposal for the city of Los Angeles.
City job.
I heard little missing, little whispers. I wasn't paying too much attention that day. The wedding was out in San Pedro. They ended up, it didn't work. Because she just knew in her heart, in her spirit, that she was superior to him. Now, my question to her would have been, why did you even entertain getting married to this guy? Because when she came to him and said, we're going to get married, it's just, what did I do? I didn't do anything. She said, I know you didn't. And you wouldn't understand this, but that was the reason why. They were just on totally different planes. Now, the other side of it is, some of the good things that happen, you know that they're going to do well. If they have great banter and they appreciate each other verbally and non-verbally, you know, they got a great shot at doing this, you know. It's like, you can't stay mad at somebody that you're really in love with.
Right.
Yeah.
I have this. Barbara and I were married 35 and a half years before she passed away, okay? The first, 10 years was, first 10 years was a journey.
What a word.
I like how you found the word. You said, where is the word?
One of the challenges that we had, and I try to pay attention to this when I'm talking to couples, we were both the eldest child in our respective families.
That's important. What birth order?
That's important, but you have 2 heads.
Exactly, that's why. Yeah.
And so we both were actually secondary parents to our brothers and sisters. And so it all started and ended with us. And even more so with Barbara. Barbara wasn't even raised by her mother. She was raised by her aunt and uncle. She came back to live with her mother. I think she was about 15 or something like that. And when she was going to high school and all that stuff. And she ended up, because her mother was, what kind of word can I use here? Mother, wonderful woman, okay? But she was a little worldly, shall we say.
Okay.
That's why her aunt and uncle raised her. When her mother came to know Christ, she was a major proponent of the gospel and all that stuff, all the rest of her life. And it was a situation where Barbara had to be in charge of everything. Being the minister of music at Faithful Central, that was a designated calling for her because that was her mentality. She was always in charge. She learned how to tamper that a little bit as she went through life so she could work with anybody. Okay, but like for Easter services, okay, that was her idea to put all that stuff together.
Right, the show, yeah.
Yeah, people
So
didn't
you
understand
all,
that. Right. And so I'm like, I used to look at her, and I was like, wow, how did I get after the first 10 years, okay?
Okay.
The first 10 years I was filled with stuff like this. Barbara, stop directing me. I'm not a member of your choir anymore. You know, you don't have to direct me. And she would say, and I was like, that ain't gonna work for me. And it was like, for a little while. And then it came to me one day, what am I trying to change or make this woman change for? She was, in a sense, she was almost perfect being as she was. She was flowing in her gifts and all of that stuff, and it made me appreciate her even more so, okay? And so we went through all of that, man, and it's like I felt so blessed. And for the last, 20 years almost, over 20 years, yeah. It was just fantastic, you know. But she was diagnosed about a month to the day after we buried her sister, Yvette. Her sister died of lung cancer, okay? And almost a month to the day, we found out not only that she had cancer, but she was already at stage 4. And so I'm saying, this doesn't happen to us. This happens to other people. So we go through this. She's going to the doctor all the time. Her doctor, she happened to get a doctor in UCLA, and we're living in Yorba Linda. So the further we went along, I had to drive. I wouldn't let her drive. I had to drive her. Sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times a week. From Yorba Linda to Westwood. But I had to do that because that's my life. I had to do that, you know. And she was going through all these changes, man. This is a little idiosyncrasy of mine. I hate touching people's feet.
Okay.
That's
interesting.
Idiosyncrasy of me, okay? But when she was sick like that, she needed to soak her feet, have them rubbed and lotion down. It would give her so much. She would feel great. She would feel so much comfort. Exactly, that's what I'm looking for. And so I said, this is what I have to do every night. When she was at home, I'd get home from work. She would eat. I said, you want me to run the water? I'd run the water, put the tub down there, and turn her on. And when she was finished, I'd lotion her down and massage her feet and stuff. And it made her feel better. And I gave you that example when she had her knees. You guys were kids when she had her knees, both knees replaced.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like, that was the first time I ever had to change somebody's bedpan. That was an experience. I'm saying, giving all these little crazy things for this reason. When you get married and you say those vows, the vows are just not something perfunctory that's out there, you know. Those vows mean stuff. You're making actually a covenant with each other, and you're promising God that you're going to keep that covenant.
Right.
Okay? And when it gets to the vows where it says, in sickness and in health, for rich or for poor, those are not jokes. That's real stuff.
Right.
And if you don't have a spouse, you don't know what's going to happen next month or next year. Anything can happen to either of you. And so that means the other one has got to step up and deal with it. And I had found myself doing that. And it was like, on the one hand, it was a chore, but it was a chore that I enveloped. And I got pleasure out of serving my wife that way, you know.
I was thinking, do you think that's one of the reasons being equally yoked is so important when it comes to marriage? Because when the hard times come, it's like, what is the foundation that a person leads on? So that's probably
exactly right. See what happens. A lot of people don't think about this. You bring it up. This is a very wise man you have, you know. This is what happens, okay? You go through life, and the good times, they take care of themselves. Everybody's fun and happy, and you have a great time. You're going great places and all that stuff. But the true test of your marriage is how well you deal with and navigate through the rough times in your lives. It could be anything. It could be death of a family member. It could be anything, loss of a job, anything like that. That's the true test of your marriage. Because you supposedly have been preparing for all of this stuff in sickness and in health, for richer or for poor. I keep bringing those up. But you have to learn how to navigate through that stuff, because it's tough. Right. It's so tough. It's been 4 years. As of the 8th of November, it was 4 years ago she passed away. It's going to sound strange to some people, but I have that whole funeral on this computer that I'm looking at. I have it on my computer at the office because I'm at home right now, okay? And I watch that service almost once a month because it was a great testament to her and her legacy and her life.
Beautiful.
And it was a wonderful service. I just enjoyed it. You know?
It was a beautiful service.
But at the same time, I'm still, it just bring, you know, I don't break into tears too much anymore. But I have, you know, those pictures. Were you guys at the service?
Yes.
Oh, she was.
Okay. You made those big 36 by 48 pictures where one on each side of the casket.
Mm-hmm.
I have both. I have two. I had two more made. I have one. Both of them in my office. And the one with her living over her shoulder, smiling. That's my favorite picture of her.
Mm-hmm.
I have that on my wall in my little apartment because I sold the house. I got a little apartment now. But I have that in my office, and I get comfort out of seeing her watching me as I'm working.
Yeah.
You know.
So when you have these new couples, they're bright-eyed and they're very excited. Hopefully, I don't know how many couples come unwillingly to premarital counseling, but hopefully they're excited, right? And they want to be there.
Right.
What do you tell them to encourage them to understand the gravity of marriage, but then not to like scare them, not to be too daunting at the same time?
You don't want to scare them at all. But here's one of the things that has happened. We watch this year over year over year. At this stage of what we're doing in marriage prep is it's like we had the same curriculum. That's one of the reasons why we need new curriculum. But over half the couples are already living together. Over half of them.
That's where it is now.
Yeah. Not only that, but many of them not only are living together, they have kids or kids. Okay?
So then what's the curriculum now? Because that's
still the same. You still have to deal with them. We just can't. We can't tell them like we used to do 30 years ago. You need to move out.
Right. Right.
I had a couple in an exit interview. I'll never forget this as long as I live. One of the questions I used to ask the couples when they first sat down, okay, why did you want to get married? No. Why did you? Wait a minute. Why did I put the question?
The question. Why you want to?
Why did you come to this class?
Okay.
Okay. I learned years ago. You ask a question and just shut up and let them talk. The guy looks at me and said, I didn't know. I said, why do you want to get married? That's what it was. He says, I don't want to get married. I came to this class because she wanted me to. And she looked at him like, and I'm saying to myself, they have no clue, either one of them. I said, really? So then I don't know why the Lord gave me this question. I said, what kind of work do you do, man? He says, oh, I'm just like my daddy. I'm a hustler. I said, okay. He was working for TSA at LAX, right? They broke up 10 days after that meeting. That was the end of it. She did not have any idea. This man was not really there for her. He was there for himself.
But they were living together. And already had established. So that's a lot of times, most of the times, before people get engaged, they will already be living together, at least now.
That's the life, that's the society we have.
That's right.
It's almost like they see it as another step in their relationship almost.
Right. And the last step would almost be premarital counseling. So when do you think is a good time to actually come? Is it just right before marriage? Yeah.
We tell people, and we tell them this all the time. Some of them listen to them, many of them don't.
Okay.
We suggest that you come to premarital counseling before you even get engaged.
Right.
You get in there because then you'll really find out if you're really ready to be married. Or like I said, are you ready to be married with the person you with? Okay. And then we suggest that because I use Carlton as an example. You don't want to go out and spend $23,000 and lost it. Okay?
Yeah.
Do your due diligence. Be there for one another. I know there's no doubt that you love one another, or at least you say you love one another. Okay, but you need to find out the particulars about each other. Because I tell them this story. You gotta, and I make a joke out of it, but this is real. When you guys get married, make sure you get an apartment or a house that has at least 2 bathrooms. Well, why is that? I said, some of you brothers have no idea that your wife or your fiance, you don't even think they even use the bathroom.
Man, I should have got that advice. We say that. I say that all the time. I'm like, because we have a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, and our next place, I was like, we have to at least have 2 bathrooms, and our sinks.
And one of them is gonna have 2 sinks.
It has to have 2 sinks.
Hair, other things that happen in the bathroom. But these are things that you find out if you're living together. And so if you're not living together, then you're opening up a whole new window when you do get married, which is okay.
That is very true. But you make sure you have at least a 2-month supply of air freshener. when you live together, when you live, because it's different. I know guys, I know women, I know some women that their husband has never seen them without makeup on.
Right. Well, let's shift. Exactly. Let's shift to honesty, because I know that this is a big topic for how you're going to go forward if you're going to get married. So like sometimes women will play these games and they won't reveal everything. So they're not being dishonest, but they're not sharing everything. Does this come up in the sessions? Like, okay, we're gonna ask questions. We're gonna say, how do you feel about kids? How do you feel about my mother? What do you think about whatever the topics are? And then how can you gauge if the couples are being honest or if they're not?
Because they might just want to be saying what you want to hear to pass the class.
Well,
and if they don't pass.
I like to say this. A lot of times you get these relationships get started and you don't meet your fiance, you meet their representative.
Their avatar.
And you don't find out, you can't, that's why it amazes me. I find people, we had a couple that got met, they met each other and they decided they would want to go to marriage prep. They had known each other a month. They started marriage prep. They got married a week after marriage prep.
Wow.
You gotta be kidding me.
They knew all that.
I'm like, wow, that's deep. I said, the chances of this relationship working is very small. I said, but hey, it's your life. You have to deal with this. And there will be letters out there, bishop letter, how, we want to do this is our decision. Hey, a year and a half later, gone. Because they didn't know each other.
They didn't know each other.
They just didn't know each other. You have to learn and know each other. It takes a long time. And like I say, you get to know their representative. You can put up a front for so long.
Right. No, Aaron says 8 months. He gives
my timeline is 8 months. I feel like a man could put on a good front for a good 8 months without cracks, without the cracks. But after 8 months, he gets kind of comfortable and some cracks come in. But a good 8 months, I don't I have nieces now and they have boyfriends. And they're like, and me and Lindsay been together. I was 14, 15, and I was in love. And so they're like, oh, I have this boyfriend. I'm in love with him and stuff. And I'm like, how long have you been together? And they're like, oh, yeah, we've been together for like 3 months. And I'm like, okay, well, come back to me in 5 months because I need seasons.
Right.
I need to.
When you tell them that, they don't really understand that when you're telling it to them. Right. They feel like you're trying to tell them how to run their lives. You're trying to help them not make some mistakes that a lot of people do when they don't fully vet each other, if you want to look at that.
The vetting process.
Right. And so, okay, I think I just kind of want to understand the end process to the premarital counseling and then like going forward. So you have this exit interview and you can make the suggestion like, hey, we've had how many sessions? What, like 10 sessions, would you say?
Well, it's 12. It's going down to 10 now, but it was 12.
Okay. We've had sessions with mentors, other couples. You've seen them evaluated, that sort of thing. And then you make your suggestion whether or not they should, if you will, or they might just need more time together. Not that they obviously shouldn't be together, but that they might need more counseling, or I don't know what you would say. But then what happens next, would you say?
Well, when they finish what we call small groups, the end of the counseling, okay, the counselors do an assessment on the couple. And they have 3 different boxes, 1 or 3 boxes they can check. Number 1, ready for marriage, or married for wedding with marriage blessing. 2, ready for marriage but need to improve in this, and this.
Like what?
Well, could be communication, could be the way he talks to her, the way he treats her, the way she discounts him. We have to get that stuff together, okay? The last one is not ready for marriage, and we'll list all of the reasons why we don't think that they're ready for marriage. And we'll be honest with them, because when I let them know, when you go to this class, there's no pass or fail. You get a certificate of completion, okay? You completed the class, but you will know, when we let you know that we believe that you can make it, we believe you're going to make it, or we believe you're definitely not going to make it.
Wow.
So that brings up a question for me, of the rebels, because I know that some people are rebellious and they'll take the not ready for marriage as as like a galvanizing cause. Like we're about to show, we're about to show y'all. Yeah. Does that happen enough, or how is that conversation when you're doing the assessment to them and you're looking at them and they're just not receiving the information? Because I mean, probably one of the reasons they're not ready for marriage is because they're not willing to receive information. Well, so how is that conversation?
One of the things that happens, a couple of things that happen. Number one, when you tell them that, one or two things are going to happen. You will say, "Oh wow, okay."
They didn't know.
Right. Didn't think about that, and now it's laid out to us. They've talked to us about this. We'll work on that. Or the other, like you said, "Oh no, we can do this. We can do this." And then 3 or 4 months later, they come to us, we made a mistake. They're lucky if they didn't plan the wedding already.
Right.
Because you can't return the wedding presents and the gown and all the rest of that stuff, you know. Well, that happens from time to time for sure, definitely. That's why we think it's so important that they go through the class so they'll understand. Were you guys here when you went through the class?
No, we were in New York, and so we had to.
We actually did not go through the class, and this is so interesting because everything that you're saying, I'm like, I wonder what would have happened. Because I know how I believe we were 8-9 years ago, but I'm like, we met with Bishop and we had a semi-class with him. Right. And so that was our premarital before he married us.
Yeah, that was the sign off.
New York then, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't go through Faithfuls, and we had a book, and the book had
our book had like work. It was like a workbook.
It was a workbook.
I swear by that book because it was, but we had to go through the whole book. And Lindsay's mom was she's the one who found it, and she probably asked your advice about it. And so it was workbook after workbook. We had to do it. We had to do it
every day. We were on the train doing it. It was a list of questions. It was his and hers. You did it by yourself sometimes, and you come together and you look at the answers. It
was almost like the newlywed game.
Yeah, it was scored
in a workbook form. So.
The thing about it is I feel like what's more important is the tools that you need and the strategies that you need for a successful marriage. And so even though like not everyone came from a two-parent home or a home that spoke well of each other and had the upbringing of a healthy marriage, not everyone sees that, not everyone has that. And so then they need individually and together, they might need help. They might say, okay, these are the tools that we want you to work on. And so I wonder if that's something that you give them almost as like homework assignments.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. The mentors teach the class, and they always have lots of questions. We try to answer as many questions. Well, so you guys need to work. The biggest thing is oneness. Communication is the undergirding of everything. The communication is not right. I have this book in my office. In fact, I don't have the book. I have the workbook because so many people came and borrowed and or stolen the book that I have. It's called Communication, Sex, and Money.
Okay.
I'm gonna write that down.
Wow. Yeah.
The premise of that book is if either one of those three things is out of whack, the relationship is in peril.
Okay.
If money is bad, communication is gonna be horrible. There may not be much sex.
There it is.
If your sex is whack, it don't matter how much money you have,
Yeah.
And if the communication is bad, it all meshes together. And so you learn a lot of that stuff. You get taught, you get instructed, but you have to learn it by living it as you go through this life. Because life is no joke.
Come on.
It is no joke, man. I'll never forget when my mother passed away. She was 68 years of age. She passed away 10 years after my father passed away, who was also 68 years of age.
Wow.
And 3 years after my mother passed, Barbara's mother passed away, who was also 68 years of age. Well, I went through the rest of my life saying, 68 is the death number. Well, I was panic. I'm 73, I got past that, so I'm trying to hold on as much as I can, But little things, here's one of the biggest complaints I get from most of the women, and they talk about this sometimes in the classes, and I get them in the exit interviews. He doesn't talk. He clams up, he won't communicate with me. And so they get upset about that. I said, have you ever asked him, number one, did he grow up with a father in the home? If he did, Was his father communicating, or was he just as quiet as he was? That's the only thing he has to go by. He doesn't know anything else. So you have to learn how to help get him through that process so that he can become a communicative person. Now, if he starts talking too much, it's on you because he never did it before.
You wanted it.
There you go. But then you have to do that. If you don't communicate, you don't talk. I know there's a lot of nonverbal communication that goes on in life.
Yes.
A whole lot of the stuff you have to talk about.
Right.
And see, if he doesn't do that, sometimes it's not that he doesn't want to, he just doesn't know how. So that stuff you have to do. That's real stuff.
Wow.
I guess my last question would be, if you were talking to a couple, or you saw a couple and they were interested in moving forward, but they're a new couple, what would your advice be to a couple who's not engaged yet? They're thinking about it. Would you just say, like, what would you, like, out of all your wisdom, out of all your experience, and they were like, we're looking for you for advice, what kind of advice would you give?
First thing I would tell them is you got to make sure, number one, that you actually love each other. You just don't like each other. You love each other. That's at the core. Once you get that established, then you have to say, okay, if we're going to get married, we need to understand what marriage is all about. Yeah, you may have parents that have been married, but their marriage may not have been the best, and that would be your only pattern for that. So you need to go through that, and you need to talk to married couples. Talk to married couples that have been married for 4 or 5 years. Talk to married couples that have been married 40 years. You'll get different perspectives, and it will help you understand the challenges in the whole situation.
That's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, is to share and give different perspectives and new ideas and groundings and foundations. So we are so grateful that you were able to join us.
Thank you so much.
This episode. Thank you.
I just want an invitation when you guys start your own church. Amen. I want to.
No, we might be coming when we get back to Cali. You might have to be mentors over there.
I was gonna say, we'll take it road, you know.
By the time you get back here, it'll be time for us to have. It's time now to have some new marriage mentors for other couples.
And we would love to.
So thank you so much, Pastor Jordan. And we love you so much.
Now, Lindsay, you know today is only Wednesday, right? You know I'll be talking to you. I'm up now on Saturday.
I know. We love you. I love you.
Much respect and love to you. Much success to you. And I'm waiting for you to get a Tony some kind of way. You know?
Done.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Love you both.
All right, love you too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching us. If you're watching on YouTube, because we're on YouTube now, or if you're listening to us, thank you for joining us on this episode, First Comes Love, Then Comes Marriage podcast. You can reach out to us, Instagram, First Comes Love, TCM.
TikTok, First Comes Love, TCM.
Yes.
And you can always call the voicemail at 412-LOVE-POD. That's 412-5683-763.
Email us, please. Email us, like, write to me. I love letters. Let's talk at firstcomeslove, then comes marriage.com.
See you next Friday.